Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Constitution Committee. First item on the agenda is minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of November 2021. I'll move them. Thank you. Item 2, question time. There's no questions. Questions asked under Standing Order 7.3 and 7.5. There's no questions being asked. Item 4, to advise of any other items which the Chairman has decided to take as urgent. There's no other items. Item 5, declarations of interest. Anything from anyone? No? Okay. We'll move on to item 6, which is the statement of accounts, annual governance statements and the pension fund accounts 2020-21. And I'll hand over to Chris. You starting us?
If I kick off, but I'm going to pass over to Jason just to take us through the report, because it's his team that have done all the hard work in terms of putting the accounts together. And it has been quite a lot of hard work this year. It was clearly a lot of remote work in terms of producing the accounts. And also on top of that, bringing in a new system as well and producing the first set of accounts on the new system has been quite a tough year. But we managed to produce it on time and to target. So I think it's really kind of a very good outcome, really. So I'll pass over to Jason.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. So I'll just turn to the report. Good morning, everybody. So the purpose of the report is to present the financial accounts for approval today, take the committee through the main areas of the financial statements and report the key findings from the external auditor. I won't go through every paragraph. I assume everybody's read the report, but just very quickly, I'll run through some of the key points. So the draft accounts were produced in July earlier this year. They were required by statute to be audited by the end of September, but as Chris mentioned, due to our new system, we agreed an extended date with the auditor to the end of November. Just a few days past that, but we're okay with that, and the auditor presented their findings last Friday to the Corporate Governance Committee, and that went well. They anticipate issuing an unqualified audit opinion. There are a couple of things they're just finishing off on, but they expect to complete those this week. There's some minor top-up testing that they need to do, but there are no issues expected. Paragraph 6 just runs through some of the challenges we've had. As Chris said, the system we'd had for over 20 years was replaced partway through the year. That was quite a big change, so quite a big piece of work for the whole of the finance team. We obviously had COVID, so a full year of COVID, and as we said there, significant extra funding to account for, and also the level of audit testing. So members may be aware of the Redmond review and other criticisms of external audit. So the amount of testing this year has risen significantly compared with previous years. But we've got there. We've done the accounts. There are no material issues, and we should hopefully sign this week, so that's a good result. So the next few paragraphs take you through the main sections of the accounts. There are 150 pages of them, so there's quite a lot to get through, but it breaks down into 4 main statements. There's the narrative statement, the movement in reserves, balance sheet, and there's the cash flow statement. So if we just look at the MERS statement, movement in reserves, that splits between the reserves that the council can use for day-to-day earmark purposes and also unusable. So there are some technical adjustments that we can't touch, but in terms of the usable reserves, there are 3 of those outlined in paragraph 11. There's the general fund, earmark funds and capital. So the general fund, if we just go on to that in paragraph 13, that itself comprises 3 elements to it. There's delegated funding that schools hold, and there's the uncommitted balance, so that's the unforeseen fund for unforeseen risk that the council holds. And there used to be the DSG reserve, so this was the deficit on the DSG account. So that's 4.1, the net of the 2 figures on rows 2 and 3. So that used to be held within the general fund, but new statutory legislation moved that out of there and ring-fenced it on the balance sheet. Paragraph 15 talks about earmark funds, so they have risen during the year, but there are reasons for that, and they're explained in paragraph 16. So the two main reasons are the capital financing reserve has risen by 10 million, and that's primarily to do with slippage on the capital programme. So some schemes that were planned to be spent have taken longer, partly due to COVID. So some of that money's not been drawn down as quickly as we'd anticipate. And the second bullet point in paragraph 16 is the budget equalisation reserve. So that's a new reserve, and that holds the deficit, well, it holds money to manage variations in funding that we said there. It's particularly shadowing the deficit on the high needs element of the dedicated schools grant. So if I turn the page and move to the balance sheet now on paragraph 22. So the net assets of the council have reduced during the year from 448 at the start of the previous year to 316 million. As we explain in paragraph 23, most of that is to do with the pension fund deficit. So this is a technical calculation of what the pension fund deficit would be, and that has risen during the year to 836 million, the net deficit. So that's on a technical basis, an accounting basis called IAS 19, and that is different to the triennial valuation that takes place every 3 years. And that generally shows a better position because we can take account of future investment returns in that we're dictated to in the accounts by quite a prudent percentage, 2% as a discount rate. Where in the triennial review, we can use a slightly higher rate based on actual investment returns. Turning over the page, perhaps the only other thing to draw out on there is page 28. So the council's historic level of borrowing that it has is 232 million. That's the amount of previous capex, capital expenditure, that we've funded that we've not yet financed. So we've got that as historic debt. 232 actual debt from external bodies is 263 million, so we're slightly over borrowed, but that is temporary because we're aware that we're going to be borrowing for the new capital programme and adding to that figure. Paragraph 29 is the annual governance statement. So that was approved in July at the Corporate Governance Committee, and it was updated again last week with at the committee, and that was approved. Paragraph 30 talks about the pension fund accounts, so they're also part of the financial statements. And there's paragraph 33, it talks about quite a big increase in the net assets of the fund from 4.2 billion to 5.1. A lot of that was a reversal of the previous year, that we actually dropped the previous year from 4.3 to 4.1 billion to do with COVID valuations, but a lot of that is the recovery is caught up again now, so that's good. Next key section is what the auditor found. So there was one issue that we had to correct to do with estimates, so that was corrected in the accounts. And then there were 4 recommendations starting at paragraph 38. 38 and 39 were some minor reconciliations that we're still working through due to the new system. There was one on the pension fund annual report that we're working through. We'll pick up next year. We did update the committee, the pension fund committee, with missing items, so they were comfortable with that approach. And then paragraph 41, there was one issue relating to the IT audit, and that's being worked through, but some of that was a direct result of the new system, the access that was required to update that. So not many, many findings, nothing significant for us to be worried about. So given everything that we did, it was quite pleasing result. So I think the whole team did well. And then 43 was a new requirement, paragraph 43. The Audit Office have introduced a new value for money arrangement statement. So this is new, and the work on that is still ongoing. We hope to get that at the end of January, but there are no issues raised so far. The audit fees, they are higher than the previous year, but they did notify us of those earlier in the year. We don't know the final fee yet, but we hope that it shouldn't be much more than they notified before. So that leaves us to the recommendation that asking if the committee are recommended to approve the accounts for 2021. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions from anyone? Richard?
It's a comment, really. It's a pity. Thank you. It's a comment. It's a pity the auditor couldn't complete the work by the end of November, as previously agreed. Jason's referred to that and explained the reason. But I think I would just like to note that to me it's disappointing that couldn't be done. But there we are.
Thank you, Richard. Lee?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just a comment, I think, from sort of John as Chief Executive, Chris as Director, and Jason and his team. I mean, well done. I think you work hard all year round to get a qualified audit, and I think you've got that. I think the size of the authority and all that COVID has thrown at you in the last sort of 12, 18 months, I think you've done really well on that. So, yeah, congratulations. I'd just like that noted. Just a quick question on the value for money arrangements. I mean, is that a benchmarking sort of measure that is taken as to whether we're deemed to be value for money? So is it, or is it a series of measures based on just our information?
We haven't seen the report yet. It's still new, so I don't know precisely how will they compare us with others. But I think it'd be more. Hopefully, we'll certainly cover the latter. Have we ticked all the boxes that they expect us? There was something called the FM code, that CITFA issued. We assessed ourselves against that as producing most, if not all, of the requirements. So. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, but we'll see when they report. But nothing's been raised to us. The auditors did tell us that there was no weaknesses that have been reported back to them for the work done to date. We look good so far.
So I chip in a bit as well. I think it will be a combination of probably a bit of benchmarking, but also the traditional work they've done on financial standing. So clearly, with lots of local authorities getting difficulties, they wanted to beef up that bit of work. So there will be quite a lot on looking at our reserve position, our liabilities, etc. So as that's something they wanted to strengthen across the piece, following Northamptonshire, etc.
Just a couple of questions from me. Obviously, the designated school grant, the high needs aspect of that is shown differently on the accounts now. Does that have any overall impact at all on how the accounts are shown? Just a quick question about the pension fund. I picked up in there that we'll be back to 100% funded in 17 years. Once we get to that 17 years, will that be sustained then with going forward? And just another question about the reserves. Are reserves up or down from what we were from last year? So it's just really how we've recovered and managed through a whole year of COVID, really.
If I start off with anything I missed, Jason, you can fill in. So on the SEN, I mean, it is slightly nonsensical, the position in the accounts, because there is a negative reserve of how much, Jason? £11 million, which doesn't really show and doesn't net off our reserves, but that is the statute that was put through from the Department for Education to kind of make sure that local authorities didn't take decisions on the basis that that deficit exists. Now that bit of legislation is time limited, and from memory, I think it actually it reverses in about 2 years' time, and I think that's going to be a big issue for many authorities. It'll probably be a big issue for us actually, because in 2 years' time our deficit will be bigger, and for some authorities like Surrey it's probably already over 100 million. So that is an issue, but it appears on the balance sheet, but it's just kind of separately ring fenced as a negative item. So that that is an issue. Is there anything you wanted to add on that, Jason?
No, exactly.
Yeah. What was the other one you mentioned?
The pension fund being back to 100% in 17 years, is it sustained after that, or?
Well, actually, the pension fund's in surplus at the moment in terms of the way the actuarial valuation's done. As Jason said, it's a bit of a technical issue, the fact that it shows us a deficit in terms of these accounts. So we've had a very good kind of run in terms of investment returns. So the investment fund, for the first time since I've worked at the authority, is actually in surplus. On the valuation that matters, if you see what I mean, which is the actuarial valuation.
And then the third one was on the minimum reserves, how we've coped during the whole year of COVID and our financial
I'll let Jason kind of chip in with the figures, but the reserves have actually gone up. So the earmarked reserves have actually increased. And part of that is COVID. So obviously we had some COVID money that we kind of carried forward, and there's other elements as well, such as the capital programme. There was slippage in terms of the capital programme, and because a lot of that's funded from reserves, that obviously kind of kept it within reserves, and we added a bit more in as well. So it's actually increased slightly. I dare say it will fall back again as we get to the end of this financial year. And again, Jason, anything you want to add?
No, there's a table on paragraph 11 that just summarises the reserve balances. It shows they rose by 40 million across the year, and it is, as Chris says, it's those temporary balances that we received that we're spending over the financial year.
So the COVID money that we've got will be spent before the end of the financial year, because there's clawback on that, isn't there, if we don't, on some of that?
Yeah, there is on some of the grant money, yeah.
Any other questions from anyone else? Okay, I'll just echo the comments already made about how good it is to receive this audit, and how well the team have done, not only in a whole year of COVID, but with a brand new system as well that's thrown several things up in the air, hasn't it? And they've not fallen back in the right place. So I think well done, as agreed. So the recommendations are on page 12. Are we okay to approve that recommendation? Okay, thank you very much. Final item, is any other items? Chairman's decided to take urgent. There's no other items to take, so I'll draw the meeting to close. Thank you very much.